So just over 3 years ago, I decided that I was going to go on this crazy journey to become a CPA. And today, I've been licensed for just over 2 years. Honestly, I can't even believe that it's been 2 years since I got my license and I've gotten through those grueling exams. But here I am today, licensed, practicing in tax, and I'm doing a good job at it. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about 3 things that I think that anyone that's going after CPA should do when they're studying, and how I passed the CPA exams in just over 7 months while I was working full-time, like an idiot. So I went to a super small school where I played football for 4 years and I loved every second of it, but accounting was never my first journey. I realized how life-changing being a CPA could be after watching my advisor, who was a CPA at the time that had a private practice while he was a teacher at the school, and saw how much money he was making doing a CPA thing, and it just motivated me to get myself out of poverty. While I was in college, I worked at Subway. I wasn't rich. I pretty much paid all my rent by myself. I paid for my own car. I was a broke college student. And when I first got to college, I was really looking at going for nursing, but I decided to make a big change and jump into the accounting field and become the first CPA in my family. But luckily for me, my teacher actually promoted the CPA program, and he helped me get to 150 credits without having to go to school for my master's. Because while I was playing football, they were paying for my courses anyways, I decided it made sense for me to go take those extra credits. So I took a pretty much traditional route where I got a degree in accounting and then I got another degree in finance and business administration so I could hit the 150 credits to sit for the exam. But like a lot of people do, I got a job in accounting right after I graduated from college, and then it was hard for me to get to this mode where I was going to be able to take some of these exams. I started to make money and everything was just like, well, I'll get to it when I get to it, but I really sat down and made the decision to get my CPA license after I saw some of the people that had it and the prestige ranking that they got from getting it. If you're on the fence about doing your CPA exams and you're an accountant, just do it, because at the end of the day, it's a prestigious thing to have and it's going to fast track your career. So like a lot of people that are really smart, going to college, I really didn't spend a lot of time studying, so studying for my CPA exams was completely different. So in this video, I'm going to kind of break down the different things that I did and things I recommend that you do while you're studying, because it's very important that you have a strategic plan on how you're going to attack these exams. First thing that I would recommend is that you actually get out of bed to start studying. I know it's kind of unpopular for people to get up super early to do something in their lives nowadays, but getting up at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and having those first 2 hours of the day just to spend studying before I had to work were so pivotal. Like if I could go back, that was probably the biggest change that helped me out with doing my CPA exams. In the morning, I would watch whatever lectures I had for the day so that I could get through those and then start attacking the questions. And throughout the day, I would do like 10 questions every couple of hours while I was on the clock. And during that 2-hour session that I had in the morning, I would honestly just 2x the video so that I could watch it in fast speed. And then I would spend the majority of my time working on the questions, because doing the application part made it so much easier for me to retain information. And because I was working full time while I took the exams, I used to take like 10 or 15 minutes to do questions throughout the day, and then I would spend my lunches doing a bunch of questions so that I could get through more content in a more timely manner. And then at night, I did massive review studies. So essentially, I would spend a bunch of time just going through multiple choice questions, getting through the task-based simulations, and if I was on portions where I was really struggling, I would go back and look at some of the textbook notes and kind of review anything that I had throughout the day. So I'm going to take a quick break here for you guys to subscribe to my channel if you find the content helpful. If this is something you're looking for in the future, or you want more content about becoming a CPA, subscribe to my channel and I'll continue to post stuff like this. Alright, let's get to step number 2. Step number 2, and probably the biggest change that I had in terms of my studying patterns, is that I focus a lot of time on the multiple choice questions and the task-based simulations. Now, when I first started studying for the exams, I wrote a bunch of notes down on the video. I mean, I was writing pages worth of notes every time I was watching the videos, and I realized that it wasn't sustainable and I wasn't going back to go review those notes anymore. I realized that when I was doing the multiple choice questions, I started to see these patterns start to develop, and as I saw those patterns start to develop, it became more comprehensive for me and I started to understand it. And I think this is kind of the path that a lot of us take when we're doing the exams, but in the beginning, you got to get out of that phase of just thinking that the videos are the answers. And honestly, when I was studying for the exams, it felt like I was drowning the first like 3 or 4 different chapters, and by the end of it, it all started to come together when I started to really hammer down on those multiple choice questions and task-based simulations. And I really had that snap moment where I started to really conceptualize some of the things in the exams right before I was actually sitting for them. So honestly, I spent probably like 100 to 150 hours studying for each of those exams, at least according to Becker. I think I honestly spent more time studying for the exams than that, but that's what it said on the paper, so I'm going to go with that. For those 150 hours each exam, I would recommend that you spend probably 60 to 70 hours focusing on those multiple choice questions and really hammering them down until you can get the patterns for some of the questions, because they're going to show up on the exams. The Becker people are good at what they do. Continue to follow the programs and do the multiple choice questions, because they will help you in the end. The third tip that I'm going to give you guys for today is to not spend more than 2 months studying for a specific exam. And especially if you're not working full time, you need to get that down to maybe a month per exam. And the reason that I say that is that because there's so much volume in the exams, if you spend too much time on a certain section, you'll either never get through all of the content, or you're going to forget everything that you learned at the beginning. When I was studying for my first exam, and I think it was BEC at the time, for you newbies, I know that's not a thing anymore, but back in the day we didn't have a choice on which discipline we could take. I spent a bunch of time in the beginning hyper focusing on each lecture, thinking that I needed to know everything in it. And the reality of it is that you have to get through all of the content. You're gonna have weak points within the CPA exam, and they're not just gonna test you on your weak points. There's gonna be multiple things that get tested. So I recommend that you do what's called just a first pass, where you go through a bunch of the content and you just keep going even if you feel like you're struggling on a previous section. That way you don't hyper focus on your weak areas and you come back and spend the majority of your review time focusing on those few different sections. So the way that I set up my study time is I gave about 6 weeks just to do the normal lecture videos and do all the multiple choice questions and task-based simulations. And then the last 2 weeks I spent on the sims, and then also going through back over all the content and doing like a cumulative review. This way the pressure was always on when I was taking the exam. It created some accountability, knowing that I had an exam scheduled and I only had 2 months to get it done, so that I spent every day studying for those 2 months, and I knew it was just a grind I had to get through. And it also prevented me from forgetting some of the content that I learned at the beginning stages. I got a chance to do a big review of everything, so then I was able to remember a lot of the concepts when I sat for the exams. That's pretty much all of my study guides. It wasn't really complicated. I just spent a bunch of time going through the basics. I went through all of the videos. I did all of the multiple choice questions. I tried to tackle as many of the task-based simulations as possible, and I just kept doing it until it made sense in my brain. There's not really a one-shoe-fits-all type of thing for this type of exam. It's really about finding out what ways you learn the best and then applying those so that you can retain as much content as possible. If you can have a silly guy like myself who wasn't a 4.0 student in college or high school, I can tell you that you can get through these exams. You have to be some level of smart to get through the exams, but the reality is that if you put in enough hours of just studying consistently, you will get through them. And if you like this content, I'll be dropping another video about my pacing when I took the exams coming up soon, so stay tuned for the next video. See you guys later.